Hey everyone! Today, we're taking a hard look at something that's been building for a while: how powerful media and institutions can shape public perception, even when the reality on the ground doesn't exactly match up. Specifically, let's dig into why so many Americans were led to believe that Kamala Harris was destined to be a major frontrunner, even the next face of American leadership, despite signs pointing in the opposite direction. We're going to unpack how the media sold this narrative and why, when it didn't pan out, people were genuinely surprised and left questioning if everyone else was seeing the same reality. So let's rewind a bit, back to the early days of Harris's campaign. The media machine was in full swing, painting her as a groundbreaking candidate with this massive groundswell of support. Headlines were filled with phrases like historic potential and inevitable rise. Articles and TV segments seemed practically scripted, all pushing the same message, that Kamala Harris had unstoppable momentum. But let's take a closer look at her campaign events. When you actually dug into the turnout numbers, there was, well, a noticeable lack of crowds. Some rallies barely filled the space, with audiences that looked more like neighborhood meetings than a political revolution. But hey, nothing says national momentum like a couple of rows of folding chairs, right? Still, the media kept pushing the story. They ran polls and told us Harris was gaining traction, acting like these numbers were set in stone. But here's the question: who was being polled? Because these numbers didn't reflect what we saw on the ground. It makes you wonder if they were calling Harris's family and friends just to keep the numbers high. Or maybe these supporters were the same folks who actually buy those extended car warranties that telemarketers won't stop calling about. You start to get the sense that something here wasn't adding up. But why would the media go to such lengths to build this narrative? The reality is, it's not just about reporting the news. There are much deeper connections between media outlets, political campaigns, and the powerful interests that fund both. Major media networks don't just run on advertising dollars, they're influenced by the agendas of the people behind those dollars. Political campaigns know this too. And well, when a candidate has powerful backers, suddenly there's a rising star that the media can't stop talking about. It's not unlike how a restaurant might call their soup the chef special when really, it's just what's left over at the end of the night. There's a narrative, but it's not always backed by public enthusiasm. This isn't just about fake news, it's about selective storytelling. The media can take certain truths, polish them up, and push them out to the public in a way that makes a candidate look like they're a sure thing, even when that's not the full picture. It's a bit like selling a haunted house and only mentioning the historic character of the place. Sure, it's got history, but maybe that history doesn't really want you there. But the media won't mention the flickering lights or the strange noises in the middle of the night. They're just hoping you'll sign the papers. Then election day comes around, and people are genuinely surprised. They're left staring at the results, thinking, but I thought she had all this support. And here's the real kicker: they're left wondering if everyone else was out of the loop or if they were. When a narrative runs so deep, people often assume that they must be missing something. It's what happens when a story is repeated often enough and loud enough that reality starts feeling like the lie. And here's the thing: when a gap grows this wide between perception and reality, the consequences can go far beyond just a disappointing election night. It does real damage. People don't just feel misled, they start losing trust in the entire system: media, political institutions, government. It breeds a sense of disillusionment and frustration that only deepens divisions. Some people even went as far as to expect civil unrest or civil war, bracing for conflict because of how the media presented this election as a high-stakes, do-or-die situation. Think about that for a moment. The narrative became so intense, so distorted, that it didn't just skew public perception, it made Americans fearful of one another, anticipating a country on the brink of tearing itself apart. When people are convinced their side is winning, only to find out they've been handed a different outcome, that gap between expectations and reality becomes a spark that can lead to real unrest. The media plays a critical role in setting these expectations, but when it becomes more about driving a narrative than reporting facts, we're left with a distorted reality that fuels fear, distrust, and division. So, what's the takeaway here? This isn't just about being skeptical, it's about recognizing that not everything we're shown is the full picture. It's essential to look beyond the sound bites, beyond the media's polished headlines, and ask ourselves what's being left out. Pay attention to what's happening on the ground, not just what's hipped on screen, because it's often the unseen details that tell the real story. Otherwise, we might just find ourselves buying into a narrative craft for us, and we're the ones who'll pay the price. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit that subscribe button and stick around. There's a lot to unpack, and we've only scratched the surface.